Acting DNI Joseph McGuire testified before Congress Thursday to address questions about the whistleblower complaint and why he and the White House delayed handing it over. Political battle lines were quickly drawn. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, laid out the Democratic argument.
The President of the United States has betrayed his oath of office, betrayed his oath to defend our national security, and betrayed his oath to defend our Constitution for his personal political benefit.
Ranking Republican Devin Nunes laid out the GOP case.
The Democrats' mania to overturn the 2016 elections, everything they touch gets hopelessly politicized. With the Russia hoax, it was our intelligence agencies which were turned into a political weapon to attack the president. And now today, the whistleblower process is the casualty.
What a pivot point for President Trump. His entire presidency on the line, impeachment now on Capitol Hill. Has he changed his own view of how he's going to move forward in the next year?
He doesn't seem to have changed his view. He's following a traditional playbook that we've seen from him, which is to try to go after and discredit the accusers, and then to counterattack, and then to kick up a lot of dust, to create distractions, in this case around Biden, to divert attention from the facts about his own conduct. This is probably going to continue. The problem that he faces is that the White House is understaffed right now. In some respects, they're demoralized over all of the heat that they've been facing, and they don't have a full operation. They don't have a war room.
Are there tensions about how to move forward strategically?
There are. I mean, there's actually talk of bringing in an outside team that can handle this PR battle and the legal battle, so that other people in the White House can focus on governing. But remember, there's an acting chief of staff right now. The press secretary is actually holding 3 jobs at once. It is not a fully running machine at the moment.
Will there be a war room?
Less talk of a war room, more of a team that could potentially be on the inside or outside that would help strategize communications, essentially just fight back against the Democrats and provide them with someone who could spearhead that strategy. What's been interesting is there are people who are outside the White House now from Trump's campaign world that are trying to get into this, trying to step in. Corey Lewandowski, the president's former campaign manager, a few other officials. They've got a list, and there have been conversations about starting this inside the White House. They haven't made it up to the president yet, because what we're hearing is multiple people say the president is kind of in denial about the situation he's in. He doesn't realize the gravity of it. He essentially doesn't think he needs a team like this to come in to help. And of course, there are mainstays inside the White House who are also pushing back because it's a very territorial West Wing. So that'll be the question of whether or not they go forward. But of course, he's going to need someone to help him push back against this.
But he'll drive it all himself, as he always does. And we saw on Twitter this morning him launching a series of attacks that he presumably thought up himself.
So if it's political war from the White House, whether they have a war room or not at the end of the day, what about Democrats? Can they keep this impeachment narrowly focused on Ukraine?
Nancy Pelosi says she wants to keep this narrowly focused, and it's smart on the Democrats' part to just talk about this call instead of saying, well, let's really try to back up Hunter Biden. Let's try to make the case that Joe Biden wasn't corrupt. Let's try to see if Don Jr. and the emoluments and all the issues with the president's own children on whether or not they're profiting from the president's tenure here. They don't want to have any of those conversations. I think they learned in the Mueller report that there were so many different avenues to go down that the president kind of threw things on the wall and they all got distracted, and the American people, frankly, got confused. If you just keep talking about this call, just keep saying, look, he was on the call with the president of Ukraine. He's pressuring him. Democrats want that message. But I want to also say on the war room aspect, I've been talking to people inside the White House, as we all have, and they sound like they just are still trying to formulate what to do. But then when you talk to the Trump campaign, they're saying, well, we're going to be putting out millions of dollars of ads to try to fight this online, on Facebook, both on in TV ads. So what they have is essentially a war room operating in the Trump campaign, but that is set up to reelect the president, not to fight impeachment.
So the Trump campaign and Corey Lewandowski may be ready to go to the barricades, but what about Senate Republicans? Are they going to do the same?
Well, there are 2 camps. There are Republicans who are still standing by the president. Anytime you ask them, they say this whistleblower just has secondhand information.
Okay, that's what they say publicly, Nancy.
Yes.
What do they say to you privately?
Well, I mean, there is a group that is standing by him, and they say it's unfair and all Democrats care about is impeachment. There is another group of Senate Republicans who feel deeply uneasy about the president's strategy, who frankly are worn out. after defending him for several years, but who can see where this is all headed. That's the reality. They can see now this is going to land in the lap of the Senate, whether they like it or not. And in fact, Leader McConnell himself has said, we go immediately into an impeachment trial.
What's your read on McConnell?
I think that McConnell he's walking a fine line here. He is someone who, in the past, has always stood by the president if he can find any rationale whatsoever. He really tries to parse out the times when he looks for distance with this president, because that's not a very comfortable place to be, particularly in this party. But I do think for the first time, Republicans appear to be thinking about what could possibly come next. I mean, that's several steps down the road. They don't want to go there yet, but the reality is this is no longer just a PR war. We're now looking at real-life developments. The ambassador, essentially, to Ukraine has just stepped down. Democrats in the House are planning to conduct depositions with 5 State Department officials just in the next 2 weeks. So, we're going to see a snowballing effect here.
How significant are the statements by Senator Sass of Nebraska, Senator Romney of Utah, raising some concerns as Republicans?
They're pretty significant because I think it's pretty clear that they speak for a number of their colleagues who are just afraid to say so, attributing their own names. And the dynamic can change quickly, as Nancy was just pointing to. If you have more evidence coming forward in this impeachment inquiry in the House, if you have a vote on the House floor to actually impeach the president and it kicks over to the Senate, it could be a very different calculus that some of those Republican senators make. And the Democrats do not need all of the Republican senators to vote to convict the president. They only need, what is it, 17 or 20? It's a two-thirds majority of the chamber. And there's a world in which that could actually happen.
Trump has always been deeply mistrustful of these people. He
Yeah.
doesn't think that they're all on his side. A lot of them privately don't like the president. They're these mainstay establishment Republicans who the president has made their life very difficult. And so I agree. I don't think that it's likely, but I just don't think it's guaranteed that he'll be fine.
Well, and part of the thing that may open these cracks even wider, public opinion. And for now, here's where public opinion stands. A new PBS NewsHour, NPR, and Marist poll shows Americans are still divided on this start of an impeachment inquiry. As 49% of adults surveyed nationally approve, 46% disapprove. The divide is more stark when broken down along party lines. 88% of Democrats approve, 93% of Republicans disapprove. Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado, Senator Susan Collins of Maine, all up for re-election in 2020. When you're talking to your White House sources, are those the people they're paying attention to? On the Republican side, is it the senators who are retiring, like Lamar Alexander of Tennessee? Maybe all of them.
I can imagine that the White House is looking at all of these people. I think of Representative Turner from Ohio in the hearing with Joseph McGuire. He says, look, I have a message for the president. This isn't okay. So I think the White House is in some ways keeping their ears open for all Republicans who are thinking about this. I also think it's important to look in that poll. We asked people in that poll how much of this is going to impact how you vote in 2020. The majority of people said it was not going to have any factors, like 58% of them. So it's important to also note that as Republicans think about how this might impact the election, we're already getting a sense from people that this isn't going to impact their vote, which is in some ways pretty remarkable because this was a historic week in Washington.
And how is this different than we've seen impeachment before in American history? You now have Twitter, cable news. You have a conservative infrastructure out there that's echoing the president at every turn. Does that buoy the White House, that they feel like even if the Republicans are cracking at times, that they feel like they have a wider universe of support?
Well, and with Trump in particular, he's got something about him that has helped him evade things that would have brought any other politician down. Of course, there are so many stories over the last few years since he's been in office, since he was on the campaign trail. With the president, we're talking about having a team to help him strategize, fight this off, publicly defend him. He may not need that because, of course, he's the president. He's got his Twitter. He's sometimes his own best spokesman. But he also has, entire news channels that typically are in his favor. He's got radio shows. He's got a huge Twitter following of people that are ready to defend him. That could help potentially. That's still something that's an open question.
Nancy, when you're on the Hill and you're talking to Democrats and some Republicans, what's the timeline? Are we looking at an impeachment vote in the House next spring? Is it going to be next summer? Maybe this fall?
The timeline really depends on which Democrat you talk to, because there are some, particularly from swing districts, who don't want this to overshadow the agenda for the next 6 months. They believe that that would be very difficult politically for them. So I was talking to one swing district Democrat this week who had just kind of come over from the other side, was now supporting an impeachment inquiry, who said that he thought that perhaps they could vote by the end of this week. So, so there are Democrats who want to get this over and done with. And then there are others who say, look at this whistleblower report. We have 17 new leads to follow, new names to track down, so much more investigating to do, and they want to follow every thread to the end and be able to put together the most airtight case possible. So the reality is, I think Speaker Pelosi herself has said multiple times that she wants to be expeditious. That was her word this week, expeditious.
Expeditious.
And
well, expeditious is what this show has been.
Right.
This has been quick. It is already the end.
What?
I know.